Okay. All right. All right. It's 2:05, and we are going to begin the work session for the fiscal year 2019 Superintendent's Recommended Budget.
Good afternoon, board members. So I have shared with you 3 separate documents: a modified budget, a supplemental budget, and then a multi-page highlight summary spreadsheet of all the changes that we've made between the superintendent's last recommended budget at the last presentation to now, based on your information. So what I'd like to do is start with a presentation and some of the changes that have happened since then. So at your last presentation, the superintendent's budget totaled $8.5 million with a recommendation and a request of $6.8 million in local funding and $1 million from the local county fund balance, $264,000 in state funding. The majority of those increases, as you can tell by the categories, are in support of our staff for the negotiated agreement, with the highlights being in the areas of salaries for mid-level administration, instructional salaries, special education, and fixed charges. At that time, we were also told at the December County Commissioner meeting that they were anticipating a 0.85% increase in their county revenues, or $1.9 million. On January 9th, the board members were informed that the county government was looking at less of a revenue increase, in essence about $1 million. Additionally, at the county commissioners' work session in December, they informed us that the maintenance of effort calculation would result in $156,000, or essentially flat funding to the Board of Education. Since that last presentation to you, we've received additional information from MSDE. We had originally anticipated an increase of $264,000 based on the slight enrollment change. However, the draft information was released on January 19th, reflecting an increase in state aid of $1.4 million. And that includes a 0.75% increase in the per pupil allocation funding from the state, based on inflationary factors, as well as a 1.1% increase in the transportation component of the formula. So we went back and started remodifying the budget, and then last week we received additional good information, and that was from the Maryland State Retirement Agency, stating that our cost for pension costs for next year would be $4.9 million instead of the $5.5 million that we were anticipating. And then we got more good information. Healthcare. We had included in the superintendent's budget a 5% increase in the premium. We also included that to be partially offset by the negotiated healthcare contribution changes. Well, we've been working with the county government on a joint RFP for healthcare. It's quite a detailed process. We're getting binders about this thick that we've just completed our review of. And the draft projections of the RFP results indicate an $800,000 savings to SMCPS. The county government would then be recognizing savings as well. We'll be bringing all of those details before you on February 14th for your approval of the vendor, and the county government is looking to take action on February 13th.
Can I ask a quick question on that? So for that joint RFP, it's all or none. So both SMCPS and county government have to agree to the terms together in order to go forward with that.
That's correct.
Okay, just so everyone's clear.
Yes. So with all that background information, we now have a modified budget before you. And that reflects an increase of $1 million in local funding, local fund balance of $1.9 million, a change in the state aid to an increase of $1.4 million, and a change in the federal increase of $160,000, for a bottom line increase of $4.7 million. And we truly believe that these are reasonable increases and a reasonable amount to request from the county government. As a matter of fact, just 2 weeks ago, I was at a Government Finance Officers Association meeting with many of the county officers in both school districts and county governments, and Ms. Cudmore was there, and we were talking about new projections and new economic growth indicators that are out there that have been released since that December meeting that she had. And some of that information that she's looking at evaluating is not just the historical information for tax year ending 2016. She had previously presented the income tax growth was only 1.8%, but also new information that's been released by the Bureau of Revenue Estimates of the Comptroller's Office. They're projecting a 5.8% increase in income tax revenues based on additional economic indicators that they're familiar with and they're tracking. Of course, having previously held a similar seat with a different county government and doing revenue projections, it's very challenging to project income tax because you're not only looking at the historical trends, but you're also looking at projecting future indicators. So some of the other things that she's going to be looking at or has been looking at is, like, for example, the capital gains. They've been very strong the last quarter. The S&P 500 index, just for this past year, that information was released, and that was a 19% increase just for 2017. So all of that information will be taken into consideration. When we're developing our budget, we're not strictly looking at the revenues, but we're also going back and looking at our expenditures. And their audited financial statements were just released for 2017 last month, and they had a very favorable expenditure budgetary variance of $8 million. I'm sure that they're going to be working through that with their directors as we do here. When we set our budget for the next fiscal year, our directors look at a baseline budget and say, and zero-based budget, and say, if there was $10,000 budgeted, but I only used $5,000, then that's what I'm going to be asking for the next fiscal year. I'm not basing my budget on the original $10,000 that was budgeted. So we're constantly going through the evolving process of evaluating our budget, and I'm sure that they're going to be doing the same process. So the bottom line increase of 4.7% million represents a 2.25% increase. And the consumer price index increase as of the 12-month period ending in December was 2.1%, so very much so in line.
Right. If you go back, and so just to be very clear, I mean, we're pretty aggressively, we presented a budget that was based on input from staff on the identified needs for the system, and it came with a price tag of $8.5 million. And let's just take a pause and be realistic about the possibility of that actually being fully funded, and it really isn't possible. So we've gone back, we've used all of the numbers that we have, we've gone back and looked at all of the data that we have, whether it be the Maryland Board of Revenue Estimates, whether it's the overview of local governments. We've tried to look at all of the known information about revenue and forecasting to come up with a number that is sustainable within the known money for St. Mary's County. So when we come back, what we're trying to do is we're trying to present to you, the board, a budget that you can then present to the county commissioners that can be funded within known dollars and meets our minimal needs of the system. We do recognize that it's a pretty modest projection of growth. We are all really hopeful that that's not going to be borne out by time, because we see things rebounding. That being said, they have to build a balanced budget. We have to build a balanced budget. We can't run a deficit, so we want to be able to present them with something that can be truly funded. And that's where we get to this particular budget, where we're only requesting $1 million recurring for 2019 and a little under $2 million one time from their fund balance. It could be drawn from that, again, that set-aside fund balance that they have that, depending upon how you look at it, is more than $30 million. So it would be put to good use within the school system.
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, but when we went through the budget 2 years ago, when we were asking for the money in order to enter into the new negotiated contract,
Right.
and the which included the concessions on healthcare.
Right.
At that time, wasn't it part of the presentation that then after that year going forward, that we would expect our incremental increases to be about 2% a
Yes.
year in the overall budget?
Yes.
And then,
Yes.
and that this now falls within that?
Yes.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, the county government, while they were developing their FY18 budget, put forth a 5-year plan that included $104 million in it for us for 2019, which would have reflected a $2 million increase. We're requesting half of that.
Right, okay, all right.
So what is included in the budget? Obviously, the number one thing, and that is our investment in our people. The step increases, healthcare changes, special education positions, the conversion of 4 positions from 10-month to 11-month, the conversion of 1 nurse position from 10-month to 11-month, 1.5 charter school teacher positions, 4 restricted funded teachers, and 2 restricted funded paraeducators. And support for our students, High Roads program, an extension to the secondary schools, college and career readiness software, and sustaining our system, bus contracts, and this includes a $3 fuel rate, timekeeping software, and non-recurring funding, and that was the $1.9 million for the technology refresh, social studies textbooks, classroom furniture, and replacement vehicles.
You said the bus contracts, you're looking at $3 a
the
gallon
fuel.
for diesel,
Yes,
which is $2.97 right now.
that's correct.
That's a pretty tight, there is no window for
Right.
adjustment.
That mirrors the exact conversation we had last week.
Sorry, I follow fuel prices.
So do we, very closely, as does Mr. Thompson.
Yes, he's sitting back there grimacing at me. I got it.
Yes, we do have a reserve of fund balance for that very purpose, if it exceeds beyond that. What we have removed from this budget are all new unrestricted positions. The Human Resources and Workforce Diversity Coordinator, Fiscal Services Secretary, Webmaster, ESSA Programmer Analyst, the JROTC Instructor, 2 General Classroom Teachers, Compass Paraeducator, 2 SLIP Paraeducators, the School Psychologist Coordinator 3, and a Secretary position. All reclassifications have been removed, the Coordinator of Transportation and the Secretary. Evening high school has been removed. After-school programs has been removed to the extent that is no longer grant-funded. If it's grant-funded, it will remain in the budget on the grant funding side. And maintenance contracted services.
I have a question about the junior ROTC instructor. Could you explain that?
So it is more than 50% general funded, and that was a request that came forward. And about $45,000 of that would have been funded via the federal government, but not 100%.
So going back to Mary's question, because this was mine too. So you said, how much is funded by the government?
Approximately $45,000.
Okay, so is that like over 50% of the pay or what?
It depends on the experience of the person coming in, and it depends on whether or not they're electing the full benefit package.
Which program? Which school are you
Great
This
talking
would
about?
have been for Great Mills.
This is Great Mills to expand their program to 3 instructors because they have such large student interest.
And you know, I think that program shows a lot of success. We have 172 or 3 students in that program, and the program is excellent. It's good for our students for achievement, for behavior, for leadership training, character development. That's a worthy program, and for $45,000,
The 45
$45,000, is that
that's
our
their
share?
that's their contribution.
Right, but I
So,
agree. If they can't pick it up, the federal government, then we should, because this is impacting 172 or 3 students.
The a little less than
Scotty?
half of the salary comes from the federal program, the Navy, and then the other half plus benefits comes from us. So, and these positions aren't, they can be $100,000 plus, depending
That's correct.
upon what their current rate of pay was with their
When they
position
retired.
when they retired. And this is to expand the JROTC program, it's not as though we're gonna be diminishing service to the kids who are in the program, it's that the program was to be expanded with another instructor.
But there are students that want to get in the program, and this is a worthy program, so if you don't have instructors, the classes will be way overcrowded. And this program is successful. I mean, we fought hard to get these programs in the schools. We originally had them at all 3 high schools. And now, a program is so successful, especially at Great Mills, where we have our most diverse student population. We have a lot of challenges there. And these students, when I see them in that program, in their uniforms, everything changes. The way they look at you eye to eye, the firm handshake, the character that they display, their manners. And the parents love the program. I would like to see a way that we can have that additional instructor, because there are students lined up to get in the program.
See, and I agree 100% with Mary, because I look at it just as if it's at the tech center,
A pathway.
a pathway for these students. And, you know, and I do go to a lot of their events and things such as that, but I do know when I talked to Captain Randall that if the students must maintain a good discipline record at school,
Oh, absolutely.
because if
Attendance,
not,
academics, yeah.
then they're out of the program, and I think that's a great incentive to help with students' character. I just think that if there's some way that we can try to move things around to give those students that might want to go in the military as a career path, that option remain there.
And we are a military community, not necessarily that it's there to promote students going in the military, but it teaches students about other things too. They may choose not to go in the military, but it's teaching them discipline, leadership, respect, responsibility, teamwork, collaboration. They just mature so much, and I've been following the junior ROTC program when it first came here. We need to do everything in our power to make sure we keep that program. We do not want to disappoint our students who want to go in that program.
Okay.
So, okay, hold on, everyone. So we are still just in the presentation portion.
I know, but
I
it's
know.
a work
And
session.
I understand, so let's,
right.
but just, hold on, so we kind of keep it in order, let's get through everything that Mrs.
Okay.
McCord has, and then we'll jump in, because also keep in mind, she is just the messenger.
I know,
So-
I'm asking the
but
money questions of her. Usually when we have work session, you know, they say jump in whenever.
Right,
Okay,
so-
now it's let her finish the whole presentation, then ask questions. See, the rules change,
No,
so.
the rules have not changed,
Yeah,
we are.
when we had work sessions in the past, the thing was jump in, you know, as
It's-
they're presenting,
it's
because
jumping-
it is a work session.
it's
It's
jumping in
not
once
a
we-
regular board meeting.
It is, it's jumping in once we go through the detail, this is still just the overall summary,
I
so-
am not attacking you. I am just,
didn't take any
you are the presenter, and I'm just presenting my concerns, not only to you, but to Dr. Smith as well, my board members, everyone in the audience here, and everybody in TV land, okay? That this program is important. I've seen it, and it needs to stay.
Okay.
I think you got it.
I took lots of notes. And so, and I do appreciate, Ms. Bailey, we're really almost to the end of this
Right.
anyway.
We really
And so
are.
then we'll go through, and what we'll do is, you know, we have directors available, and we'll kind of walk through what each one of those things might mean, and we'll keep a running total, and, you know, we're here to get input. And so what we did was we went with a very broad brush, and we just simply removed all new positions. And so as we work through and talk about any of these, and you specifically want to have them added, we can certainly put them back in the budget and modify the total as it stands. So, you're really close to the end anyway, so Tam, if you wanna, Ms. McCord, if you wanna wrap up.
This was my final
That's-
slide.
so now we're right there. There
Just
wasn't-
let it
we-
get to the end.
we weren't going back through the whole categorical, so, yeah, that really is really where we are. And you may wanna go back to that previous slide, cause I think that's really the conversation to be had we were joking about going through and having a budget work session, and originally, there was a lot to talk about because there were new things that had been added in positions and opportunities and money and things. But what we've really done with this budget is we ask every single one of our incredibly gifted directors and the people who oversee the directors to go back categorically, really look at zero base and build a budget that meets the number one objective of the school system, which is providing the best education and support services for kids, and also taking care of the people who take care of our kids. So the primary responsibility of this budget is to make sure that we find a way to give everybody their earned, negotiated step progression. Because that has to happen. That has to happen in the 19 budget. And no matter how we get to the end of that, and there may end up being really hard decisions about that. Because at the end, if we really are flat funded from the county commissioners, we're gonna have to figure out where that money comes from. And that may come from programs. That may come from positions. But the one thing I don't wanna move into 19 and not honor our commitment to our people.
I agree with that, and I also agree that we need to honor our employees 100%, no doubt about it. But I also think that who can argue with junior ROTC? The commissioners I believe, I have faith in them, that they will come up with the money for this, for us to have it. And another thing in here is evening high school.
Okay, so, hold on, so, you're jumping.
When can you
So,
talk?
well, I wanna make sure if everyone has the same questions, that everyone can jump in. So I think this document that Tammy put together that shows the differences of fiscal year 2019, it shows all of the reductions from the original $8 million and what we are down to now. So if we go through that, and then that way it can just be, it's this document right here. Sorry.
Yep, it was
Then that way,
stuck in the back.
you know exactly what dollar amount is assigned from each of those positions that are removed and what the impact would be on the budget. So, for instance, if for evening high school on here,
So if we just go page by
right, if
page,
you go page
there's,
by page, then you'll see what the impact is from removing these items.
Well, I guess I'm looking at it
Does that
from
make
a
sense?
slightly
It does,
different
but I have
tack. So, there are a few things in here on this modified budget that we've removed that I'd like to understand, how you intend to, deal with not having them. So, for instance, the webmaster, we've talked about, and I'm starting from the top, not in order of priority, but simply, our conversations about the webmaster and, some of the federal issues that have come down that we're having to deal with, clearly, that's at least an area that's going to have to be addressed. How do you plan to address our web needs, the web page needs,
Right.
without having a webmaster?
And the webmaster salary is slated in here at 64,800.
Right,
I'm just gonna assign a
Right.
dollar amount so we
And
know
that's
what
good.
amount we're talking to.
Yep.
Or,
so,
so,
do you wanna work,
I just wanna, I wanna understand the webmaster's an issue, and then evening high school, we're starting up this year and then we're gonna shut it down. So let's talk about that. And then the after-school programs, that's gonna be a challenge, and that one, I think, we're just gonna have to, wait to see what the federal government ultimately does and what our grant program does and, where we go from there. But I think, given all of our conversations about evening high school and the need we're trying to address, where do we go from here?
yeah,
What are the options?
what
Okay.
are the answers?
I don't know, all right. So I'm gonna try and make sure we don't miss anything, jumping around. So, we all go to this document.
Yes.
Where Tammy has brought it from the 8 million down, right? The first category is administration, all right? And the items that have been removed in there, if anyone's matching it up, is the secretary mentor from the budget, the new equipment, the human resources and diversity coordinator, and then various other expenses that are associated with those positions. Okay, so, and this is all straight administration.
So the coordinator, the workforce diversity coordinator, I mean, ultimately, that work then falls to the current existing staff within HR, and they're all gonna have to assume additional responsibilities, take a look at their work, modify perhaps what they're doing, and we're not gonna be able to have the presence that we would like to have to address what we see as a continuing challenge to this school system and all school systems, to hiring a diverse workforce that reflects the students who sit before them. That requires a great deal of work, and it requires a great deal of relationship building with colleges and universities and partners to have people understand what a wonderful place to work St. Mary's County is, and to draw them down into the county. And really, a dedicated person will find their day quite consumed with that work. If we don't have the dedicated person, then it's going to fall to Ms. Sparks and Mr. Rose and Dr. Beasley and Dr. Farrell, and they're gonna have to juggle their responsibilities and include that. It just doesn't give us the focus the one person focus that we'd like. Realistically, that's, if you're looking at flat funding, and that's something that's additional, something that we're currently operating without, and so we'll figure out a way to operate without it in the future. The fiscal service secretary the secretary that's in there, the floater position was to help the system when we have a vacancy in the secretarial staff. Right now, if a secretary goes out, is sick, or needs to take time off for any extended reason, we don't really have a dedicated pool of people who can float in and fill that position. And we have enough people out over the course of the year across almost 30 sites that person could be gainfully put to work every single day, and we'd have great consistency. But if that position isn't funded, it's a new position, and we'll figure out how to work through, as we have figured out how to work through when there is an absence at the school. It requires the school to reshuffle the work, or an office to shuffle the work, to make sure that nothing gets missed while the person is out. So that's just administration.
Okay. Anyone have any questions on those from the board?
No.
Okay. No.
Okay, all right, mid-level. This gets to Mrs. Allen's question regarding the webmaster. So in this category is programmer analyst that's being removed, that I think matches up there.
Mm-hmm.
The webmaster, and then also evening high school. So
Yep.
those are two of the questions, so.
Can I make a statement about the webmaster? I guess I would like to know, just like Kathy, how or who is knowledgeable in the IT area or whatever, that would be coming in to make sure it's ADA compliant, because those fines could well exceed the cost of having a webmaster.
Right, so we've already entered in an agreement with the Office of Civil Rights for accessibility, an accessibility plan for our system website, all the related subordinate pages, and then ultimately we're gonna need to go and give attention to all of our schools. That work is done predominantly by a gentleman by the name of Jason Pridgeon, an exceptionally gifted and brilliant man who juggles many, many, many things. And so in the absence of a webmaster coming on, he will continue to do that work, and working with a team, with Dr. Marr's team, and with Barrett Brooks, and with Marianne Williams, and they all work through all of that. You can become compliant by simplifying your page. So the things that draw people to your page, information, interactivity, these are things that are hard to make ADA compliant. So ultimately what will happen is we will dumb down our web presence to be compliant with the Office of Civil Rights accessibility requirements, because we don't have the talented people, the large pool of people to do the work. So, you're not gonna see the same level of interactivity on the web pages. And again, we'll have to work across all staff, we'll have to juggle things, we'll have to take a look at what we can and can't do. It's an exercise, and all of it is important, but what is vital, and we'll get to what's vital. For the timeline for the accessibility, we do have it extends over about a year and a half. So this position, although if it doesn't go forward, if the webmaster doesn't go forward in this year's, it'll be in next year's, and it'll probably be more expensive. But we will need to have dedicated staff to do this work. This is how people get information and interact with the school system. The programmer analyst for ESSA, as ESSA comes down the pike, the expectation for systems to provide data and reports and information back to the United States Department of Education and the Maryland States Department of Education, it's sizable, and it grows every single year. And these are exceptionally broad and deep reports that then have to be checked and then double checked and transmitted up, and it's just going to increase. And as grant dollars become competitive, it's all based on data. Will we be able to survive without a programmer analyst? Sure, we'll figure out a way. We'll organize our work among people, and there are things that we will do and things that we won't do, and we will be what we've been in the past, which is minimally compliant. You know, what absolutely positively has to be turned in and when it needs to be turned in, and we'll work it out for that. The challenge that we have with this is that as surveys become part of school evaluations, we don't currently have any resource, a person to be able to put to that. So I don't know how we're gonna handle the surveying expectations and the data gathering that's gonna require.
And that connects back to the surveys that Dr. Jaffers was talking about that was part of SDE's
Yeah, right.
ESSA plan.
Part of the ESSA plan, yeah.
Right.
So, but again, this is, you know, it's a new position. For evening high school, we started evening high school halfway through the year. Next year, we would do the same thing. We actually would let kids start the school year, and then as the school year gets underway, if they need the extra resource, evening high school would start, 3 to 5 weeks in. We may be able to offer that next year, depending upon how money works out, where things are. If we have fund balance at the end of the year, when we talked about how that gets rolled over, I would bring that before you as an option. You could say, we want to put that much money aside for evening. There are ways
Okay.
to do it.
That answers my question.
Yeah. So those are all in mid-level administration.
How many students are in evening high school now, and how's that working?
So right now, they've only been in session 3 weeks, and I think they have basically a cohort group of about 25 to 30 kids.
From one high school or?
Predominantly from Great Mills, but what they're doing is that as we finish the second marking period of this year, and they're really looking across Leonardtown and Chopticon, if they have students that need to have and are interested in an opportunity in evening high school, they're going to be allowed to register and enroll and recover credit in it.
So what capacity do
So
you have for students for this year?
We can go all the way up to about 45 kids. About 45 kids. And I think that if all goes well and it's all worked out for next year, that would be about our target, 45 to 50 students.
Across the whole system?
Across the whole system in evening high school. And the cost for that is gonna depend upon the amount of people that we need to push in as far as teachers. It can probably be delivered for about $140,000 for the entire year. So if we had fund balance left over or something like that, that's not a make or break amount of money.
And that's workable because these are not new positions.
These are people just
stipend kinds of things, so
seeking
we're
hourly pay
not
beyond.
we're not looking at a need for recurring funds.
It can be
It's a
one-time
recurring item
within the year.
within, and
No
goes
long-term
year by year.
Yeah, there's no long-term obligation.
Got it.
So when you say removed here on that, what does that mean?
We were building it in as a recurring item. We were saying that we're gonna make a commitment as a system to have that money put in recurring every single year. And it may be that we can't commit to it recurring, but we can say that if the funds are available, we'll do it.
Okay.
Well, what would happen if you didn't have those funds? Where would those students fall? Because some of these students are working during the day, and they're in that program because they have to work to support themselves and their families. So if we don't make this an item in our budget, it's iffy if we're gonna do it each year. And we don't wanna let the students down if they believe they have a program, they have a job, they have things in place to go to school in the evening, and then you say, oops, we don't have money. Well, we didn't have fund balance. I don't think we want to leave our students hanging like that.
I agree, but at the same time, I think given the extraordinary financial restrictions that the county is operating under at this moment in time, looking forward to the FY19 budget, and an expectation that the economy continues to improve and revenues will go up, that I'm willing to look at this on a year-by-year basis. As we build success with it, I think that makes it much easier to go forward. And from what I'm hearing and what I know of the budget, I believe that we're having to balance things, and my concern was just we're starting it up this year. What's going to happen? I think the answer you've given is reasonable for the coming year, and we continue to put it into the budget so that we can be assured of being able to carry it through. But at this moment, I think this is the best answer. We've got to drop over what we originally looked at by more than $4 million. And even then, we're not assured of getting what we're going for. So knowing that, I think what I've heard from everybody at various times is that our making sure that we can cover the negotiated agreement is first and foremost, and everything goes after that. So I'm willing to go with what you've proposed. I think it's a good answer for next year, and we'll just keep working on it.
And just evening high school is incredibly valuable.
It
And
is.
you know, we've had experience. I taught in it. I was the principal of it. But because our commitment to the kids in evening high school only is for this 1 year. So the kids that are going into evening high school right now, our commitment to them is to help them get through this year, earn the credits. And honestly, our focus has been mostly on seniors to make sure that if they've fallen off track at all, that we can actually put them in the most immersive environment to help them earn the credits so they can graduate. That's why for evening high school for next year, we don't open the year with it. We wait, get everybody back in, start seeing who's successful, who's not, and then have options at the end of about the first marking period for evening high school. Our commitment to all those kids, again, is just 1 year. It's not like Fairlead. Fairlead, our commitment with kids in Fairlead is if you enter in Fairlead in 9th grade, we will walk next to you for the next 4 years and walk across the stage. Evening high school is just another way to help support students. So
I still agree that evening high school needs to stay in the budget. I think we have good reason to convince the commissioners that we need it. You say it's mostly seniors. We want to make sure our students graduate, get a job, be contributing taxpayers, members of society, and we need that program for those students. From what I heard, the citizens were elated that we had an evening high school. They said, great, because we don't have the traditional evening high school. We build programs that we pretty much know are gonna be successful. We would not have started it if it wasn't gonna be successful. And students are looking forward to that program, and that being a program that continues. So I agree, we need to find a negotiated agreement, no doubt about it, 100%. But we have to meet the needs of our students to make sure that they graduate. And it's our student achievement is right up there, paramount. That's what we do.
All right, anything else on evening high school? Jim, you have anything? Okay. All right, the next section is instructional salaries and wages. And this is, if you guys are following along on Tammy's slide up there, is the removal of the 2 new teachers, the JROTC instructor, the HSA Government Review Committee for bridge projects, and what else? And then also the removal of the after-school programs from the budget, and the balance of the evening high school.
Right, that's so in mid-level, that was the 30, and
Correct.
supplemental pay is the 185 for all the teachers'
Correct.
salaries.
Right.
So this is the other part of it.
Well, I think I've already made my point about keeping the new junior ROTC instructor. I've seen that program for years. I just visited it, I think last week, where they had an inspector to come down and inspect the students on their uniforms. A whole line of students were successful, not only their uniform, but they knew code of conducts. It was a great program, a recognition for the students, and to see that many students in a program, and those students are successful, they're happy, they display good character. I would love to see that additional junior ROTC instructor remain in the budget, because there are students still that want to get in the program.
I guess I just need to understand what we'd have to cut in order to make this happen.
We may not have to cut anything. You know, the commissioners may give us additional money. We don't know, but I would want to cut it first. I think the citizens would come out in support of that. The military community would support it, as well as the civilian community. So that, to me, is worthy of remaining in the program. We had a junior ROTC program at Leonardtown. That program was cut. I was not happy with that. Citizens were dissatisfied with that. And we have a program at Great Mills that's growing, where students are successful. And if all we need is an instructor to keep our students focused,
But remember,
committed
What?
to graduating, committed to following the rules, committed to being successful students who have a plan when they graduate, that is very worthy of keeping it in the budget.
What is the ratio of the instructor to the students that are in the ROTC program right now?
There's the Gunny and Captain Randall, and there's 174.
72 or
Once
73
Once
students.
they go over 150, they need to expand to the 3rd instructor, and then I think that gets them up to 200.
So they're running right now with 170 with 2 instructors.
Yeah, it is one of the most successful JROTC programs
In the region.
in the region. And it is a fantastic program for students, without a doubt.
Okay.
It's also, our expected cost is about $80-some thousand to cover the others, because we don't know what that cost would be. So the evening high school with those two, that's about
$250,000 right there.
it's
Easily.
so we're about $250,000 over where we were recurring.
And also Great Mills has a high free and reduced rate. We have students who are in need of that leadership model, and they are very successful. This has the,
I don't think there's any argument about
Right.
that. And
Well-
and with the, like I said, with the evening high school, I would, rather than add that back in, I'd rather deal with it as you suggested for next year, because that will give us a little more leeway that perhaps we could do the JROTC.
I strongly disagree. I think we need both programs, evening high school and junior ROTC. That's my final word.
Okay, I have a question on the 2 teachers
Mhm.
that are removed, because despite everything at Great Mills, we do have other schools and students in this county. So, the two teachers from the budget, elementary, middle, or high school?
I believe they were to be targeted at the middle school, as that's where we've had the largest bit of growth.
Pocket, so
and
that
work,
would be
and-
where our class sizes are big, Esperanza,
Right.
most
Well,
likely.
Probably gonna be, well, and again,
depending on what enrollment
Right,
is, but
right.
that would be the thought process. Okay.
with the current budget that we are proposing,
Sorry, just get my kids off the bus. That never really mutes, does it? I'm sorry.
the current budget as it's proposed, we will have no new classroom teachers. So if there is a pocket someplace, there has to be a reduction someplace else. So
Okay.
in the, so the two teachers is a exceptionally modest increase, but it would give us the flexibility to push in without taking away in at least two instances of pockets.
Okay, so that was primarily middle
That's-
school, though?
Yeah, that was predominantly across middle school.
Okay.
That is a concern.
Well, the thing
I
is.
know, they're all a concern, it's just.
Well, what's gonna happen next year, very clearly, is so we didn't have an increase in enrollment where we thought we were gonna have last year, this year. Next year, if we have kids come in, if we have 150 kids come in, we're gonna have pockets where we have really large class sizes, and we'll probably be hearing from people who are unhappy about that, and the response will be, that's the money that we have.
Well, when you consider that 93% of our budget
Goes to
goes to people,
salary contracted and fixed charges, yeah.
then
Yeah.
that, that explains the challenge.
I can't tell you how difficult this is for staff to take all the needs of the system and then try to forecast out and build a budget, given the constraint of no new money. I mean, that's what maintenance of effort says, that you get the exact same amount of money that you got last year, and if you have fewer kids, you get less money. If you have more kids, you get more money, and if you have about the same, you get about the same. So to tell staff, do what you're doing this year, have a greater expectation placed upon you, but you're not gonna have any more money. This is a real challenge, and to Mrs. Washington's point, I couldn't agree with you more about the benefits of JROTC or the benefits of evening high school. I'll go you one further. I'd love to tell you that we're adding additional positions to the James A. Forrest Career and Technology Center. We probably could add 2 or 3 more positions to the criminal justice program. Every single year, we turn kids away to the culinary arts program. Every single year, we turn kids away to the allied health program, because we have a 3-year program, and we really have kids that are interested in the 2-year program, and it leads right to the world of work right afterwards. All of these things are things that would be of great benefit to our community, to our school system, to our kids. But when you're faced with a budget that is the budget, you have to make really hard decisions. And the one thing that I'm not willing to forego for next year is the negotiated salaries of all of our employees. All of our employees entered into a 4-year negotiated agreement, bargained in good faith, gave up concessions on both sides to be guaranteed that next year they would have their progressions. And at the end of it, if the county commissioners come back and they say the flat funding is exactly what it is, it's $157,000, and you're gonna have to figure out some other way to find all of that money, I'm gonna be coming back before you and telling you that we're gonna be looking at cutbacks to operations and transportation and programs and after school, and then ultimately freezing salaries or freezing positions.
Well, we need to let them tell us that, because we have been effective and efficient with our resources. They have asked us to go back, look at our budget, and when we meet with them, we show them ways that we have been effective and efficient with our resources, that there's no waste over here, there's no hidden money over here. And it is all about the county. It's about whether people will want to move to St. Mary's County because the quality of our schools are great, and back to evening high school and the junior ROTC. These are students who are at the crossroads. Either they're gonna graduate or they're gonna drop out. It's their program. They're gonna inspire, encourage them to stay in school and graduate and be taxpaying citizens. I know the commissioners want people who are gonna stay here and be tax-paying citizens who buy homes, who buy goods and services. That's what we're trying to do. Trying to raise our graduation rate. That's we had some information on that.
Right.
So we want to make sure that we have these programs. These are seniors, these are high school students. They're at the end of the road. So we have to make sure that they can step over into the land of graduation so that they can work, go to college, or be prepared for a career and move forward. So I know we can do a lot, but for our other students and our other schools as well.
Right.
These are the students that are ready to graduate. And we want to make sure that they can cross that bar. So I believe the commissioners will support us in this, and the community will.
I just keep going back to slide number 4, where the current projected revenue increase for the county from this year, for next year over this year, is less than $2 million. So,
You're talking about paper, I'm talking about people. I'm talking about real lives, I'm talking about students. This will be their last chance.
I get that.
Right.
But if the county doesn't have any money,
Right, if
Right.
they're not, look, we have been told very clearly,
To our
Right.
face by 4
to
of
our
them.
face, by 4 of the 5 commissioners, okay? That this is what we are dealing with, okay? That they are where they are with their revenue projections. There is no indication that they have given us over the last month, correct,
No.
Mr. or Dr. Smith?
Mhm.
That they are going to move that off of what they have already decided in December, right? Regardless of what the governor's budget and what the state SDAT has come out with, they are not moving off that percentage. So based on that percentage, this is what we are left with. So what the choice is that we have to make is that we all sat here and we had a big ceremony and we signed the agreements and we said, look, over the next 3 years, this is what we're gonna give our staff and our teachers, right? So either we decide whether to honor that, renege on our commitment, and go with these other things, or take a hard look of what we have, and keep in mind, we are not cutting the ROTC program, we are not cutting these things, we are just not expanding it this year because of the budget situation that we are in. And the trade-off of that is to honor what we have signed with ESMIC, right?
I agree.
And provide them with what we promised them that we would do, right?
I agree.
And they made a lot of concessions to come to the table to get that agreement.
I agree.
So the point is that if I am going to stand up and fight for anything with the county commissioners, at this point, based on where this budget is and what they have told us, that agreement and ensuring that we are able to fill it is my personal #1 priority, because I signed my name to that document. Now, if they tell me, sorry, Karen, you're out of luck, then there's nothing I can do about that, because I have no way to create revenue for the school system, right? I can't charge people to come here. I can't do anything more than continually ask them to honor that agreement.
Nothing's official until the county commissioners vote on it.
I agree, but I mean, the direction has been
And we still
crystal
have
clear.
time. We still have time.
we do, but we have to be able to vote on this in just a few weeks, to send forward to them, and then for them to take that forward to their public hearing and for a final budget. So as we do every time, every year, we will continue to work with them and hope that their revenue picture improves. But at the present time, we are going to have to deal with the reality of their fiscal picture. And
well,
Dr.
and-
Smith
In
continues
their
to have.
projections.
Right, Dr. Smith has continued to have conversations with them. I know we all will. I have. But right now, we just need to get through these pieces and understand ramifications, and to indicate to the superintendent of the items that they are proposing that they have removed from this modified budget. If the picture changes and improves, what what is reasonable to put back in a level of priorities. If there's something in here that is just hands down, drop dead, I can't believe you chose A over B, we think B is more important, and here's why, then that's the direction I think we give the superintendent. You know, I think staff can understand by the challenges we're voicing that this is not easy for any of us. We've been here, we understand these programs, we know the value of them. We know the struggles that people in the system have operated under for years. We see them day and night in various places. It does not come down to a question of having an issue with what they've brought forward to us originally. It is just a function of
Numbers.
That
mean,
it's,
that's
you
honestly what it
can't
comes down
change
to.
that, you know, that's,
So. Okay, anyone else on instructional salaries and wages?
But just so we're very clear, what we will do following this, to everyone's point, is we are gonna go through, and all the things that we've brought up, that we've discussed, we're gonna have a concrete fiscal amount of what those are in a budget, and we'll have that specific and ready for your consideration. Now, keep in mind that the last slide says that there is a public hearing, and the public is to come out and tell us what they think about our budget. The challenge that we have is that if the public comes out and tells us we want all of these things, we're not gonna disagree with them, we do, but we have no way, as of right now, it's not responsible for me to build a budget after I've been told in December by the county commissioners, the county administrator, and the CFO that we shouldn't
Secret
count on,
letter.
we shouldn't count on anything beyond maintenance of effort. That we were told that. We were told that in a series of meetings through all of them. They told us that very clearly. We brought that back. So that's what they've told us. Now, we tried to build a budget that said, okay, we heard what you said, and it is a very, we hope that your economic forecast, we hope that there's some more information, maybe it's a little bit better. So instead of 157,000, if you could see your way clear to $1 million, which we believe is well within keeping, and a little under $2 million one-time fund balance, that keeps us within a 2% growth, which was your long-term forecast, and actually is half of what we thought we were gonna get recurring. We believe that that's palatable. That's where we have to be. But we can bring this all to budget, have all those other pieces when we send it over to the county commissioners and have them say no.
Right.
But what they're gonna say is that that's not fair to them when they've told us that there isn't the money available to fund it, to go forward with it and then make that demand. That's not, who makes the hard decision? That's the
But-
question we've been asking the staff.
I have a question. By law, the superintendent is to put forth the needs of the school system.
Yes.
By law.
Yes, yeah.
And that's what we have to do.
And
And I mean, to be reasonable, I'm not saying to be unreasonable,
Right.
but to be reasonable and to show them why this is needed,
Right.
how we've been fiscally responsible, we've been effective and efficient with our resources to make our case.
yeah, well, and so what we'll do is we'll put that together just like that. So we've been calling it cavalierly the à la carte menu. So so what we've presented for the budget right now, that's the budget. That's what has to happen. That's what we have to have to honor our negotiated agreement and move forward as a system. That is they have to have money. And then what we could do, Mrs. Washington, to your point, is say, and here are the things that we really believe are a critical need, and this is the specific cost, and let the commissioners have that conversation about whether or not there's funding available for them and how they'd like to look at that. You are right. You're gonna be very hard pressed in this community to have anybody that says that expansion of the Navy JROTC shouldn't happen.
Or even
yeah.
high school.
Yeah.
Because we don't want dropouts in St. Mary's County. We want students to
Absolutely not.
graduate, work, have a family, buy homes, buy goods and services,
Yes.
and pay taxes.
And yes, absolutely be contributing members of the community.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Of course, I would just add, this is zero-sum game. So if we get the ROTC and evening high school, something else is gonna have to be cut.
Not necessarily, because additional revenues may come in.
Yes, of course.
So don't think that it can't happen. It's not over yet.
Right.
It's
Well,
not over.
and there is no zero, to the presented budget back, if you go back, Ms. McCourt, to just the amount, that's the amount of money that has to really come into the system to be able to do the things that need to happen. So, anything beyond that, evening high school is $200,000 added to that. The JROTC is $85,000 added to that. So now we're at $5 million. Everything will be added to that, and that's the way we could ultimately present the budget. To say that the 4.7 is what we need to run, and then these other things are things that we believe are extremely important, and if there's any way that funding can be found for them, they are important. But I don't want to be in a situation where I'm trying to take away from something for something else.
Right.
Okay, so we're instructional salaries, textbooks and other
Textbook and
instructional supplies?
Imagine Learning, it's probably the largest amount at $73,000, which is computer software. I don't, furniture and equipment with allocated to the items that we've already discussed.
Right.
Does anyone have any questions on this section?
Nope.
Let's see, other instructional costs. Once again, it's mostly training expenses. There's nothing that is really over $50,000 in that section. Any questions? Special education. This is the removal of the 4 para-educators, 2 slip and 2 compass at $90,000, and I'm rounding up everyone. A full new compass teacher from the budget, which is 55. And then, what else? Another portion of evening high school. For the compass and the para-educator teachers, is that specific to a location or a general
Where it was
level?
it was gonna be an expansion of another Compass program at a new site, and instead
Okay.
what we're gonna do is we're gonna hold to it.
We're able to fund those within restricted funds. So we have 1 Compass teacher and 1 Compass para. It's within the modified budget under
It'll come under the restricted
Right.
funds.
Okay.
I know that the number of students that we need to be able to serve has been growing as more are identified.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
Could you explain again the 344,000 para-educators? The
That was-
updated
that was a-
budget figures, what does that encompass?
That was a typo in the superintendent's budget when
I'm
we brought
sorry?
it over. It was a
Typo.
typo within the superintendent's budget.
Okay.
All right, anything else on special education? Let's see, student personnel services, the majority of this, is the removed classification from the 11-month psychologist to school psychologist coordinator 3. What does that translate to in a drop-in services for students? Do you know what I mean? I mean, was that an added position or?
It was the conversion of an existing psychologist position to a
Right.
coordinator level position
so
to oversee all of the psychologists.
Okay, so the psychologist,
So the psychologist went back into the budget. The
And-
coordinator position
okay.
came out.
okay. Any questions there?
No.
Student health services, let's see. Bus assistant position to bus driver position,
Well, I have something on the student health services.
Oh, you do? Oh,
Yeah.
oh, sorry.
You're on the next
You're right.
category.
I missed my heading. All right, go ahead, Ms. Sweet.
Okay, so with the student health services, the professional development for the nurses, I don't know if this could be something of a one-time funding, because as you know, and it's been quite clear that what is going on in the community is, we're just, everything pours into the schools. So with the opioid and some of the mental health issues, I think it's really important that the nurses receive that training so that they are prepared properly for whatever is coming down the pike. So I know that they do receive other training, but there's so many things that are yearly and they must have. I just think it, as a one-time funding to make sure that they are well-versed and trained in some of these things that are going on right now out in our community.
Okay, and we'll follow up with Ms. Wentz to see if there's an opportunity for when that training occurs. The money right now is built into stipend hourly in the event that the training took place outside the regular duty day, and/or to pay for substitutes if we're pulling people out while we're doing that. So we'll have to take a look and see exactly what that looks like, and how we're best using the 5 days before school starts and that kind of time frame as well.
It's not cutting all of their professional development.
No.
training.
This
It's
was
just-
I know,
additional money
This is
that was.
just added to make sure.
I'm just making sure everyone understands.
Yeah, this was money that was pushed in for that purpose.
Right, okay.
For having the
Okay.
flexibility to be able to offer
Okay.
professional development like that. So we'll just have to see if there's another way to work that through that doesn't cost as much.
Okay, now, student transportation. Okay, let's see, the, changing of the bus assistant position to bus driver, remove the coordinator of transportation, I think is on there.
I think it's
With
just a
the supervisor,
reclassification,
Yeah,
so.
reclass is out.
Remove expansion of after-school programs from budget, I'm not sure what that is. The 150,
That is all of the after-school programs that we run, that we currently offer transportation through, that's currently covered under
Grant funded.
grant funded.
grant funded,
I
okay.
mean, we spend between $120,000 and $160,000 in grant-funded
Okay.
transportation for after-school programs. And if that goes away, that's why that's there.
Okay.
Who knows? Who knows?
It wasn't part of the athletic, it was curriculum
No,
related, so I
yes,
wasn't
it
quite
is
sure
not.
what that was.
We're not talking about touching athletics.
I didn't think
We're not
we
saying
were.
pay for play, we're not saying, we're not there.
Don't quote that, Jackie.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, anyone have anything else on student transportation?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't understand, it says, I understand you're saying you're removing the classification of coordinator of transportation to supervisor transportation from budget. That's a 1 FTE?
We currently have a coordinator. The request was put in to take the coordinator and elevate it to a supervisor.
Right.
So we're not doing that, so we're
So
pulling it back out.
where's 113,000 come from?
Well, 113,000 would be what the cost of a supervisor would be.
Yeah.
Instead, that's coming out,
Right.
and what's going back is the current cost of the coordinator, which is 107.
So it's really a delta of
It's a
about 6,000.
It's a
$6,000.
delta of
Okay, now I
$6,500.
understand.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Anything else under student transportation? All right, operation of plant. This is the removal of the 3 new building service workers and the safety and security assistant. And that's it. I know Mrs. Weaver has questions on the safety and security assistant.
Once again, things that are happening in the community, okay, and that has been, made clear by the county commissioners to us about safety and security. And I just think this is an important FTE to keep. I know we are on a flat budget and things, but, once again, this is something that they've been at us for, making sure our students are safe. And I just think this is something, I don't see how they could not support this one. I know that
As you
we're
know,
on a flat fund
Yeah,
thing, but
as you
I
know,
just.
Safety and security sits right in the superintendent's office, and I work every single day with Mike White and all the wonderful people who are helping every single day to keep our kids safe.
It would definitely be one, I think, to put in that set aside to
for-
say,
yeah.
A la carte.
these are critical items we
Yeah.
feel that we're not able to fund given circumstances.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
I would also add the removal of 3 building service workers.
Mhm.
It's kind of like pay me now or pay me later.
Right. You either take care of what you have, or you burn out the staff that you have that are trying to take care of all that you have. And then you have, then you have health concerns, you have people that get injured on the job because they're overworking. I mean, these are all things, that's why every single year. Mr. Varnes is looking at me shaking his head. Because every year, these positions they're the great ping pong positions. They're in because they are needed, and they're out because they're new. And every single year you get the argument, well, if your enrollment is flat or only whatever, then you don't need any new people. But
But our square footage
the
has
square
increased.
footage grows, and the expectation grows, and our use grows. Our buildings are in a great deal of use because they are the community centers that of St. Mary's County.
And, part of it is we're allowing Park and Recs to utilize our buildings outside of normal school hours, and that also has a significant impact on our building service workers, a very significant impact.
Been saying that for 3 years.
Yes.
Well, we've been saying,
I'm like-
we've been
So
saying it for
maybe-
more than 3.
Maybe that's something we need to take a look at. Is there a different way to approach covering that cost?
Well, the biggest thing I want to be very clear, we love Park and Recs,
Absolutely.
and what they offer our children it is amazing. And yes, our buildings are in constant use over the weekend, and we're at basketball games on Saturday and Sunday,
Yes.
and practice from the early morning to the wee hours in our elementary schools. They all have practices at night, and when we roll into the spring, there's flag football, and it is great. It's what makes St. Mary's County such a wonderful place to raise children. But yeah, there's definitely a cost, and it comes in. It's people cost. It's just expecting somebody to be at a building from 8 in the morning until 4 or 5 in the afternoon on a Saturday and a Sunday because we're having continuous games. That's a draw to the system.
When was the last time we hired a new building service worker?
This year. We had 'em in
When
this
did
budget.
we last add a building service worker, Mr. Varner? 2 years ago?
2 years ago,
And
and then before
when we
then,
brought in Captain Walter Francis Duke.
and that was only because it was a
We
new school.
brought a school online and
And
added.
then before that, when was the last time we added a building service worker before Captain Walter Francis Duke?
Actually, overall, we're down 11 FTEs in the last 8 or 9 years.
Because I know it's been in the budget every year, and it's something that the board wants to do. And I know you've got new equipment and things to try to make it easier for the employees to do their job by doing it another way. Maybe we can come up with a plan that, because they really do need help. And St. Mary's County schools are known as some of the cleanest and well-maintained schools in the state of Maryland. And it's because of our hard-working people.
Right.
Everybody knows that. You can look from one end of the hallway to the other, and it's spotless. Everything. It smells good, it looks good, it's well-maintained. So if, maybe we couldn't add 3, but maybe we can add somebody.
Well, since
what-
we have this wonderful relationship with Parks and Recs, which we really do, and Mr. Shepherd is now back, then
Yeah.
maybe this would be a great conversation to
Exactly.
have with him.
I will have to say that Dr. Smith and I do have it on our agenda almost every time we meet with Andy and Dr. Bridget, because I've been harping on this, so to speak, for a number of years, that we offer our buildings to Parks and Rec and to the county for various intramural programs throughout the year. And yet, when it comes down to adding FTEs, then we aren't.
Well, keep in mind that Park and Recs is
Exactly,
also
right.
is directly funded by the county commissioner. So I mean,
Correct.
like it's all in the same. Either and it's
All the
They're
same
gonna,
budget.
they're gonna pay for it.
to Mr. Davis's point, you're either going to pay for it here, there,
Right,
or the other
exactly.
place. It's all
Right.
I'd like to add that I was a contractor a number of years ago, supporting the DC school system, and it was Orwellian. What they did is they would steal money out of the operation maintenance fund to fund some of their own other employees, I'll call them. And what suffered was the physical plant of the whole school system. It got so bad that they had to have the federal government come in and intervene. It was unbelievable. And so I'm a strong believer that like Mrs. Washington was saying about evening schools and ROTC, you gotta maintain your buildings. If you don't, they're gonna start, and you don't have the personnel to support them.
Yeah.
You're gonna pay the price down the road. That's my only comment.
Does Rex and Parks pay when they use our buildings, correct?
They compensate us for the cost of operating the building and the personnel cost.
There's no rental fee.
So how's that money used?
We go-
It goes to what? I must have, I didn't miss, what does it go to?
The
Does
cost
I-
of, so electricity,
let-
the cost of
Let
operating the building?
Mr.
Yeah.
Dr. Walker, I want to hear from him.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
It goes toward the utility costs, and
Right.
when we incur additional expenses because the buildings are used outside of normally staffed hours, it goes toward the staffing costs.
Staffing costs.
Yeah.
So it's basically like overtime then?
It could be, depending on the
Could be.
hours they work,
Be-
yes. Yes, but it only is charged when various groups have different charges based on their status, whether they're government or nonprofit or for-profit, whatever, and the time of day they use it, if it's a normally staffed day, if it's a student day, not a student day. And each of those different scenarios determines whether they're charged for staff, they're always charged for utilities and a rental fee for the space. And then those funds are paid back out for the salaries of the employees that work during those hours. It's not a profit-making
Right,
operation.
right.
No, it is not.
Right, I just think that and I know that you said that you've been
Mhm.
trying to work with Randy Guy but I think maybe it might be a good idea to ask maybe Arthur Shepherd to be pulled into this into a meeting, because he works great with the school system, and I
Oh,
think he
wonderful.
might be a
Yeah.
good one to run this by. He might have a better understanding of the needs.
Right.
I don't, yeah, I mean, I agree. I don't think that Mr. Shepherd I don't think anyone is unaware of the amount of work that are, at least on the Parks and Rec side, of the amount of work that our employees put into those buildings once they leave.
Right.
Once the Parks and Rec group leaves. I think maybe the disconnect might be between, what the county commissioners understand
Right,
what's
but if you bring
happening.
him in, he
Correct.
might be able to be that person to, explain or, express
Right,
what is
and
needed.
If you remember when we had our joint meeting in December, Art Shepherd spoke to this very point.
Right, Mr. Shepherd and I have met and discussed updating our MOU for the use of outdoor facilities, fields and such.
Specifically.
Certainly wouldn't be a stretch to engage the conversation about the interior of the facilities as well.
Right, and I think they're being used more often. I know in the middle schools, they've added additional sports programs. Like they've added girls' basketball this year that they didn't have in prior years. So I know Chapticon and Leonardtown gyms are being used regularly up until, 7 or 8 o'clock on a Sunday night, if I'm not mistaken. So,
Oh, yeah.
okay,
Careful there, Dr. Walker.
don't hurt yourself.
You're gonna ruin the thing our guys built.
All right, maintenance of plant, increased landscaping expenses, the summer youth work program, contracted water chiller maintenance, and that was pretty much the bulk of that category.
Right, the contracted water chiller maintenance. Can we understand more about that? Mr. Whidden? I know we've talked about the importance of trying to maintain, and this is yet another rather expensive item
It is.
that we need to maintain.
So, 4 years ago, we tried to contract chiller maintenance services, and this would be wrapping up, we're trying to consolidate some of the tasks our guys do in-house, some that we contract from year to year. What's happened since 4 years ago is the majority of our chiller equipment is out of warranty. Very few plants still in warranty, and if you look at the aging tables, I know I'm big on looking at aging tables, you'll see that the majority of our schools are moving out of the middle age, I guess.
Mhm.
They're more towards the 18 to 22 years old. So the chiller maintenance service was too expensive 4 years ago to justify. This year, the cost came back. It makes more sense to do now. We have more to take care of. The board was gracious enough to provide me another HVAC tech position. I still haven't been unable to find a qualified person. That's what it's for. And what we'll try to continue to do it in-house, but it's getting more and more difficult as the machines get older. It's easy to take care of a younger machine. They just need maintenance. As they get older, they need maintenance and they need repair and they need more testing.
I know what that's like.
I'll be coming to you hopefully soon. Yeah, it was just like us.
That's right,
I was gonna say.
Thank God for the good insurance as we
right,
progress.
right.
Oh, I mean, one of the things you've talked about over the years is the ability of the system to invest in appropriate maintenance of items that have allowed them to live well beyond their life cycle.
These are expensive.
Yes.
And I apologize, off the top of my head, I'm not sure if it's 16 or 17 of our schools. These are, besides the roof and the structure, they're the number one expense in the building, as far as the capital expense. You have the structure, the roof, well, the site, the structure, the roof, and then you have the mechanical system, and the chillers are, if you're not familiar, they are one single cooling unit for the entire building. We don't have a bunch of individual cooling units spread out.
I'm just concerned.
Excuse me.
Oh, go ahead.
Have you ever had the need to bring in emergency chillers at all?
No.
Okay.
We've been fortunate enough.
Put it out there, George.
Yeah, I don't know, Murphy's Law doesn't kick in. Been fortunate enough that most of our buildings are designed with, and since I've been here, on my request as well as my predecessors, 2 chillers, except Great Mills, which we replace, we repair ahead of when it needs it to make sure we don't go out. So we wouldn't be in a situation where we had one heart that stopped beating. Most of our schools, the 16 or 17 with chillers, have 2 smaller hearts.
Mhm.
So at the worst, we lose half capacity, maybe 60%.
Okay.
If that made sense.
Yep.
We will be coming before you soon to award a contract for service and maintenance, and hopefully we'll be able to include, we're trying to work through something to make this work.
Okay.
We'll make at least half of it work for half a year and try to figure out
So
something.
we have afterwards.
Yeah, I just, the trade-off in cost, if we were able to do this, we would have a cost avoidance presumably of having something break down and be much more costly in repairing. So I just mention it as an area of concern. How we address it, I don't know, but I didn't want to just pass over that because, because now we are talking about a potential trade-off in having something break down.
Just point of perspective, just because I like numbers. We have about 64 compressors on total across the system on these chillers. One compressor failure is going to cost between $28,000 and $37,000 a month.
So there you go.
There you go. Like I said, cost avoidance. So, I would at least consider putting that as part of
And
here's
we're-
what we
yeah,
can
yeah.
potentially offset.
Right. And that may end up being a this for that.
Yeah, I
Talking
know.
about $32,000, that might end up being a this for that. Okay.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Fixed charges, we've already discussed, most of it, is the reduce in healthcare expense based on the RFP results, which Mrs. McCourt briefed everyone on. And then the impact of reducing, the additional FTEs that were in the original budget and taking them out. So that delta of the removal of those positions.
Right. Expense for fixed charges. And the only thing I'd like to say on this part is, so when we started January and we said, you know, where we were and where we thought we end up with money, and you know, it was bleak as bleak can possibly be. We started with a very gray December, and as we've worked through this, I cannot say enough about the staff that we have working in all facets to go back for all of these budgets, and those working directly with Tammy as Tammy goes through all of this. Fixed charges is a gigantic challenge. Healthcare is a gigantic challenge for all systems. We've been able to keep that at such an appropriate level and build toward, and then actually Ms. McCourt working with Jeanette Cudmore and the new HR director for the county government, Catherine Pratson, you know, to take this whole thing and put it out to bid, and then put it out to bid in this compressed time schedule. It's incredible. And if our budget works and we're able to go forward and we're able to fund the negotiated agreement, it will be because of an incredible amount of work on the back end. Because although I want to believe the best, I want to believe that people are going to be optimistic, I want to believe that we're going to have a substantial amount of money over maintenance of effort, but I have been told to my face by everybody that we're not. So if we get where we need to get, I want to make sure that we recognize the incredible amount of effort that's happening, not only on our staff, but also on the commissioner side, on the county government side. Ms. Cudmore and Ms. Pratson, you know, you've really worked together on this.
Absolutely.
So yeah, and, you know, so the
Thank you.
savings at that level, that's
Very
substantial.
significant, very significant.
Tammy, do you mind going back just one slide to the, so, I know everyone harped on everything that was coming out of the budget, but let's at least put some perspective on
Yes.
what is still in the budget. That was an increase of year over year, right, which is the list up here. We all alluded to the fact, clearly it was the increases in salaries for our teachers
That
and staff,
progression for
right, for
Every
everyone,
single staff member, yes.
right? The special education positions, the nurse position, the teachers for the charter school, because once again, that was another MOU that we all signed, that we were going to allow the charter school to expand. The high roads, which that is continuing, which that is a new program that we brought in this year. So
Down to this
there
county
there
to
also were a
offer
lot of things
options.
that we were able to bring in this year because of the finances of the county, and as well as we had done in years past, that started this year, that we are able to continue. And high roads is one of them.
Yes.
Right,
Right.
that was the positive.
Right.
That I had seen, because, I mean, when you really look at it, it has saved hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Right.
Right.
Because each student leaving to go out of the system is anywhere from 50 to 100,000 per year,
So if
per
we can-
student.
And it's in all of our best interest if we can provide them an opportunity here. They don't have to be on that bus
Right.
and travel
Right.
all that time, and it's a benefit.
Right,
So.
and then the bus contracts, I mean, so it's, you know, I mean, we talked a lot
There's
about.
some good things
I mean,
happening.
right, we talked a lot about the things that had
Absolutely.
to come out, but I mean, there's a lot of things that we are sustaining from last year that were put in last year, because we did add a lot of teaching positions, and we did add a lot of positions last year that we were able to get through based on the funding that was provided. So, you know, there's little steps that we've made that we are able to
Right.
sustain and not just take away everything.
And we do appreciate the amount of work that was put into this, not just work, but heart and soul. That is not lost on us.
Right, so,
Make it-
all right, so with that, anyone have anything else on the budget for the work session? All right,
So coming up, we have February 12th as the public hearing.
we moved from Valentine's Day, everyone.
From Valentine's Day at the request of romantics everywhere.
And Ash Wednesday.
And,
That's
so there's,
right,
right, so,
exactly.
yes, absolutely. What we will bring back before staff is the must-have budget, as well as every item that was mentioned today with the exact amount of money that it would cost, so that it can go forward for consideration. and for discussion, because I imagine that public comment, people will come out and they'll come out and they'll wanna speak to those things that aren't in the budget. They're probably not gonna speak to the things that are.
As you're preparing your public comments, just keep in mind that if the federal government does cut the after-school program funding, as what we have not heard, but the indication it might be, there's a lot of other programs that are going to go away in a lot of
I mean, that's,
the schools as well.
A lot of significant
So,
value to students.
It will just be a time to decide whether, how you wanna.
but we are optimists in
Yes.
education, and we believe that tomorrow will always be better than today, and that we will lead with our hearts and hold one another's hands and make this place even better every year.
There you go.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, we are done.